This is the Bigger Than Me podcast. Here's your host, Aaron P.
One of the reasons that I love rap is because you get to be authentic, honest, vulnerable, and share some of the trials, tribulations, and unfairnesses that you've overcome. My guest is incredible at covering topics that are hard to talk about, that are challenging to think about, and that push us to our brink. I think he talks about depression, mental health, well-being, growth, all of it in such an intricate, thoughtful way. My guest today is Enkay47. Enkay, one of my favorite all-time rappers, a true gentleman, a mensch, if there ever was one. I'm so grateful to be sitting down with you today. Would you mind introducing yourself for individuals who may not have heard of you?
Absolutely, Matt. Thank you so much for having me, by the way. You taught me what a mensch was the other day, and it's a super cool word, man. I've never heard of that before, so kudos to you, man. My name's Enkay, 47. It was weird putting the 47, like it feels too long, like too wordy, you know what I mean? I'm rambling, but I'm Enkay, I'm 25 years old, and I'm a hip-hop artist from Portland, Oregon.
Okay, you have to answer a question for my producer, Tim, first. Why do we have rap handles? Where does this come from? Your real name is Nathan, but what makes the decision to call yourself something else?
I have no fucking idea. Wait, can I say fuck on this?
Of course. Yeah, say whatever you like.
Good, bro, because I don't think I wouldn't be able to if I wanted to. So I appreciate the flexibility. Man, so my initials are NK, right? It's Nathan Kawaguchi. The 47, man, so it has two different meanings. So one is like, as most people think, it's like the gun, right? And second is because of numerology, like the number 11. I love numerology. I know a lot of people think it's really esoteric, and understandably so. But the number 11 is like, you know, a number for healing and guidance and prosperity. And my life path is a number 11. So like, I like to view my music as a way to guide people through dark times. You know what I mean?
How does that tie in with the number 47?
It's just 4 plus 7.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, I mean, NK11 just felt kind of weird. You know what I mean? And the 4-7 kind of tied in with the gun, right? You have like the fastest soul lyrics. That didn't make sense. Like the fast lyrics, the aggressive rap style. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How did you get started in rap? There's usually a route for people as to how they get interested in their musical endeavor, their artistic endeavor. When did you start to go, hey, this is my thing. I love what I'm seeing?
Man, I mean, sorry to think about that. Man, so I was really young when I got into rap. Like, I cannot play any instrument. Right. I can't sing very well. I mean, now I've definitely improved, but like, I could never sing well, bro. Like, basically tone deaf. And I always loved writing though. Like, I love telling stories. When I was younger, like, I just went through a lot of really personal things that I couldn't talk to anybody about. So what I did to cope with that was I wrote stories. Right. And I heard Eminem's The Eminem Show for the first time. And that was like the first really hip-hop oriented record that really resonated with me. Because I grew up listening to rock primarily. And when I heard that, I was like, whoa, like someone can articulate himself this well and tell stories this well about his life. And it makes me feel like I'm going through it, even though I'm not. And as soon as I heard that record, it was fucking cleaning out my closet. Changed my life, man. I'm getting goosebumps right now, bro, just talking about it. Because I remember the exact moment. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And I think I was, I believe, 13 or 14. And since then, man, that's all I've done. Like, I just write raps. I have fucking notebooks upon notebooks full of just raps that I wrote when I was a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Was it a good outlet? Did you feel like you were able to share your voice and find a space to do that? Because I think that that's such a deep problem that people can find themselves in, which is they have things to say, they have emotions they need to express and no outlet for it. And I think in a lot of ways, we're really lucky that you found this outlet.
Man, I feel extremely grateful that I found this outlet. I'm not good at very much, bro. Like, I'm not a super talented individual. I'm someone that has to find something I really enjoy and work my ass off at it for a very long time before I yield the results that I want. And hip hop was that, man. Writing was that. And I don't know, dude, I could talk about this forever, man. I love hip hop. I love writing. I love connecting with people I've never met, like such as yourself, through my lyrics. Like, I love telling my story and captivating people that, again, I've never met in such a powerful way that they feel compelled to check out the music and to write me a DM that's miles long telling me their life story. You know what I mean? Like, music is such a powerful medium. And I don't know, man. Like I said, I can go on forever about this, but I think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I love your comment, though, that it takes you a lot of work, because you see people who come in with skill and you kind of expect them to be the most successful. And I think that that's a falsehood. The people who really do well don't rely on some rooted, like, oh, I'm super good at this and that's why I'm popular, because they're not willing to put in the work that someone who doesn't come at it with some, oh, I'm already really good at this and I'm just going to build on it. You see this a lot with the UFC. People who come in with a preordained skill set, they don't know what it's like to be pushed in their work ethic or challenged in a different area. They start to fold because they don't have that mental strength, that mental fortitude to push forward when things aren't going well, when there's pressure, when the skill isn't living up to expectations. They don't have that ability, and that's what separates the good from the greats, is because they'll just work harder than everybody else.
Absolutely. But man, and music is, if any industry is the industry where you need to persevere through challenges, it's fucking hip hop. I mean, there is such an oversaturation of artists in the market that it's like, artists in the market, that could be a cool. What the hell was I saying?
I'm talking about artists in the market.
I'm glad I have you to keep me on track. There's just such an oversaturation of artists in the market. It's like, you're going to get told no 1,000 times more than you're going to get told yes. And unless you're in this industry for at least 5 to 10 years, consistently grinding, investing thousands and tens of thousands of dollars into your craft, you're not going anywhere. Like, you're just not. And the ability to persevere through all of that, in my opinion, is immensely more powerful than just being good at rap and calling it that. You know what I mean?
I love that. This is fair and unfair, but I love that there's a price to entering the market, that it takes that commitment, because then you're all in. And all of my favorite rappers, all of my favorite musical creators, they're all in. There's not another option. And Justin Clancy said it really well. He's like, I can't go get another 9-to-5 job when I know that there's people in Vancouver living off my lyrics and being motivated and inspired. And there is this cost that goes into it, but it means that you're all in. And I don't think we see the everyday people you see at the grocery store or walking down the road. They're not all in on whatever they're doing. They're half in, they're working on this. They maybe got this going on, a little bit of here, a little bit there, but they're not all in the way you're all in.
Exactly. And that's like, it goes with the saying, if you have a plan B, your plan A is way more. Hold up, let me backtrack. If you have a plan B, your plan A is a lot less likely to work, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. It's like with hip hop and with music and really any creative endeavor that you have, if you're not going at it full speed ahead, giving everything that you have towards it, it's not going to fucking work. I mean, you might have a moment of success, right? But unless you love it and you put everything and your entire being into it, like, you're not going to compete with somebody that will. You're just not.
And you're trying to get buy-in from other people. That's what I think about with the podcast a lot, is I'm asking other people to give up an hour of their time, half an hour of their time. So I have to be all in if they're going to tune in. Like, if I'm kind of doing this and doing it off the side of my and don't really care about it and not taking it too seriously, how can I possibly expect people to tune into that when you're not putting everything you have into it? And I'd like to talk about 2021 because this is a song about the ebbs and flows of your career and putting in the work. How did that song with Gawne come about?
Man, first off, I love that track, bro. Yeah, I just Gawne is one of those people that like constantly inspires me, and everyone that I collaborate with on my records, I always want to make sure that they're pushing me to another level, right? And Gawne is one of those people, man. Every time I hear him rap, I'm like, yo, I want to be able to do that. You know what I mean? Like, how the fuck did he do this multi-syllabic rhyme scheme pattern? And he just does it so flawlessly, man. It's like he doesn't try, but it's one of the hardest working people I know, man, in the music industry. So yeah, let me preface with that, I guess. 2021 came into play because I was doing this 20 series for a while called 2018, 2019, 2020. And up until 2020-ish, I reached kind of the pinnacle in my career at the time. I got contacted by Sprite for the Spotify thing. I got to go to LA and just meet a bunch of really cool people. My Spotify was killing it. My YouTube was killing it. I was making the most money I had at that time. And what happened is I decided to rebrand because I wasn't feeling passionate about hip hop anymore. I wanted to sing and do acoustic records. I don't fucking know why, man. It was like a weird epiphany I had. And I started releasing acoustic music under the name Enkay. And I invested like 10K into it. I invested everything I had into it for like a 6-month period. And it totally tanked, man. My numbers went from 250K to like 130 on Spotify alone within like about 6 to 7 months. My NK plan totally failed, bro. Like totally backlashed. And the reason I'm saying all of that is because in 2021, that's the primary inspiration behind it, was doing the rebrand and watching it fail. And I was really angry. I was angry with myself because I allowed myself to invest everything I had into a rebrand that didn't work. I felt stupid. And I was also really angry at the fans because they weren't resonating with what I was resonating with, which, you know, hindsight's 2020, man. Because it's just kind of a selfish perspective, right? Because people follow music that inspires them and that resonates with them. And if me as the artist wasn't making music that connected with people, it's like, that's not their fault. You know what I mean? That's my fault. Like, if NF just started fucking playing the banjo and did folk music, like I don't know if I follow it, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, I guess I'm saying all this to say because I was just in a really dark place, man, when I made that record. And I really needed to get it out. I was like, I don't know, man, I was like 285 pounds at the time, which for me is the biggest I've ever been. I was constantly drunk. I mean, like, I don't know, man. You know you're an alcoholic when you drink to avoid the withdrawals. You know what I mean? For days on end. Like, when you wake up drunk and that's your new norm, like, that's a problem. And I was just doing a bunch of other shit that I'm not even going to talk about on here. And that song was kind of like the accumulation of the anger and resentment that I built up towards myself. You know, everything that I internalized, I put into that track.
I love it. I think it's one of the best tracks I've ever heard. It was my #1 song in 2021, 2022, and it probably will be for 2023 because in the podcast world, we talk a lot about audience capture and this idea that you want to remain dynamic. Like, I know which podcast did the best and I could just go repeat, recycle, do the same thing over and over again, but I'm not growing and I'm going to lose my passion for it. So I have to go try new things. I have to interview people that might challenge my perspectives and make me grow in a way. And that's exactly what you were going through. And to face such pushback from the fans, like, I have the sympathy for you where I'm like, they should be open to that. If NF does pick up the banjo, yes, it might not beat his other stuff, but he's on a journey. And to that point, you see the albums he's put together. This one is very different than the first one. It's not the same thing, but he's on a journey. And if you zoom out a bit and look at it for the journey, you can see how this album fits in with his journey, and the same with your journey through this, which gives you different tools, different skills that allow you to go succeed. And so to that point, I would just say the fans need to have faith that you're on this journey and that this can only bring about like a new age of NK47. And that's what I think the message you were putting out there was.
Yeah, no, it's exactly what I was putting out, man. And like I said earlier, man, I feel like we can talk about this all day, but I guess I want to just kind of close that thought with, like, I don't really expect people to follow what I'm doing blindly anymore. I think that's a really, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess like closed-minded perspective, because that's how I used to feel, is like, these people are used to gravitate towards my music, right? They used to love what I was doing, so why don't they love what I'm doing now? And the reality is, it's like, it's shitty as it is to say, like, I'm a product, like I'm a business, and if people choose not to buy my product, that's not necessarily their fault, right? That's on me.
That's a really interesting perspective. The part that I also love about that song, though, is that in people's life, they can feel like they're being put in a circumstance. You start to buy the house, you start to invest in the roots that kind of put you somewhere, and you can start to feel stuck. And you have this message in there that people are trying to keep you where you are and not let you grow and not let you thrive, not let you become who you want to become. And I think that message is so important for people who are kind of stuck in those circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's like, I felt like the people were, it's like this really abstract term, man. I've never met most of these people, right? They're just numbers on a screen. But like, to the ones that I have met, like, it shows and through DMs and through talks, like, those people are always extremely supportive towards what I'm doing. And those are the people that would follow me and have followed me for years, despite the changes in style. Or me personally, man, I used to have blue hair, bro. Like, did you know that?
I did. I have that. I have a few songs from that album too.
Bro, I used to have blue hair, dog. I had a fucking like these blue contacts, and like, that was a wild time, man. Like, I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is, even when I did that, I faced a lot of lashback too, just because it was different. People didn't really gravitate towards that as much, but a lot of the real ones still stuck around through it, is what I was getting at.
And I think that's important. Like, those core people, you give a shout out to them for being committed and sticking with you during your journey. And like, that's the challenge of being an artist, is that you're going to have to take risks. You're going to have to challenge yourself in some regard. And I do think that what we ask of artists like yourself, what we ask of artists like Juice WRLD, is too much. It's not a reasonable request. If you were to go into a business and ask for what we're asking for of you, you would say, no, this is far too much, because you're putting the shit you've gone through as a kid, the challenges you face, the adversity you've overcome out there for everybody to listen to. And that brings me to the song, Is That What You Wanted? Because it lands on exactly that point. This is what we want from our artists, for them to lay themselves out and be incredibly vulnerable, and then we'll tune in and we'll enjoy it. And it's such a selfish request from a listener's perspective.
Yeah, no, man. See, that's another song I was thinking of when you mentioned that, because I think that was the second track on the project in my head. And I feel like I should know this, man, but I feel like 2021, that was the very first track on the album, right?
It was.
Was That What You Wanted?
Correct.
Dude, I should know that, bro. I don't know why I don't know that. But yeah, that was that was capturing the same feeling. Is that I was just really resentful towards the fans, towards myself, just towards life. I was in a really horrible place. I think when I made that song, bro, I woke up extremely fucked up, man. Like, I was drinking for days beforehand. I was fucking vomiting. Like, it was disgusting, man. And so like a weird flashback to that day, man. That was a weird day. I woke up, bro. I had a bunch of overcharges from Wells Fargo. I had a bunch of just bills that got taken out that day. I was negative like 1,000 in my account. Like, it was just stressful, man. And I woke up, and like my homie Dylan, He produces a lot of my tracks. He sent me the beat for "Is That What You Wanted" that him and Trunks made together, and I heard it, and like it just fucking hit me when it came out, man. I was like, wow, I've got to write about what I'm going through, and I was just so angry about everything. I was like, yeah, is that what you wanted? Like, you want me to be like this in this state, living this kind of lifestyle, so I could write about it and, you know, sell it to you guys as a product. Yeah, just a lot of anger in that song, man, a lot of resentment.
And it goes to the point that, like, people who are tuning in are often in the same circumstance. And we would never, like, the goal is always to look like you have the nicest clothes, to look like your hair is all done. And nobody really knows what your bank account is at and what you're going through and what your house looks like and what your bedroom looks like. Nobody knows who you really are in those dark moments. And so to put yourself out there in that way it was humbling for me, because it gave me a deeper appreciation for the work that you do, that musicians do, that artists do, because it's a huge risk. And again, I think the price is too high, yet you voluntarily like allow yourself to pay it, even though it wouldn't be a reasonable negotiation if I were to ask that of a person.
Yeah, well, man, I don't think that is something you can ask of somebody reasonably. It's like, I don't know, man. It goes back to the numerology thing, right? Like a life path 11, and I don't know, man. It is really esoteric to even bring that up, and it's really a lot of people don't believe it or don't follow it, man. It's like zodiac signs. I don't even believe in zodiac signs, but for some reason, numerology, like, that should make sense to me.
Yeah.
And it just goes back to kind of being that guiding light and inspiring other people with your challenges and obstacles. And I think it's so important to put my life on the line for everyone to see, like, with zero filter, right? Because the second that I start pretending that I'm somebody I'm not, that's the second that, I guess that's the second that, like, I stop being me, you know, and I stop being genuine to who I am. So I'd rather tell people what I'm going through, tell people what I've been through in a raw, unfiltered setting, and have them relate to it that way than me say that I'm rich as fuck and, you know, I've got all these bitches, and I don't like that word. I say that word a lot. All these women, you know what I mean? And like, that's just not true, bro. Like, this is me. You know what I mean?
And that's why I really enjoy your music, is because I don't actually like that type of music where people are trying to sell that. That's why I actually enjoy people like Vin Jay and other musicians like Gawne. They're not selling that. Like, Gawne regularly talks about his mother working incredibly hard, multiple jobs, in order for him to be able to succeed. And then he talks about how he regrets being a goof off and causing shenanigans, rather than focusing on what he could have been and wanting to take care of his family. Like, all my favorite rappers are not what normal people think rap is about. And I really appreciate your style because it doesn't focus on that. It focuses on the real things you're going through. Can we also talk about Rainfall? Because I think that that's where there's a beauty in rap music. There's a beauty in what you're doing because you're talking to yourself. Can you talk a little bit about that song?
I love that song, man. That's probably one of my favorite songs that I've ever made. And constantly, man, people don't know what it's about. Like, I always get asked, like, yo, what is that song about? What does that mean? Right. And like, to me, it's so obvious. It's so self-evident when I'm talking about, like, I'm just talking to myself, like, through my life. Right. It's like sunshine, rainfall, I'll be there through it all. You know, like, I'll be there for you, or something like that. You know, when I made this song, I was like, I was in such a bad place mentally. Like, you know, when I made Is That What You Wanted, 2021, etc. I just wanted to apologize to myself, right, as a kid. Because I was like, man, like, you had all these hopes and all these aspirations, and like, you know, this is what I made of them, and I'm sorry, you know. And like, it was just such a powerful feeling for me, man. So just to apologize to your past self because you're a fuck up, right? That's a really powerful thing. And
to love yourself, right? When you look back on all the decisions you made, what came through for me was the empathy you felt for yourself And it's such an interesting thing to do, to look at yourself, your past self, as almost a separate person that you love and that you understand and that you have sympathy for, because so easy it is to just look at it with regrets. It's hard to say, I was in hell, I was in a tough place, but I still love myself for who I was then and the decisions I was making. That's, I think, the challenge for so many people to get over that hurdle.
Yeah, no, I think that's the, point in your life where you have to have empathy, because you're like, you have to take care of yourself. Like, you're someone that needs to be taken care of, right? And it's like, I was and am someone that I need to constantly take care of and be vigilant about, because I'm a fuck up, man. Like, if I'm like, I have super addictive personality flaws. Like, if I just have to steer clear of basically any substance, because I know that, like, if I take it once, then I'm going to take it twice and then 3 times. And I limit myself to Starbucks, bro. I fuck with video games, you know what I mean? Like, but I can't even smoke weed. I can't drink anymore. I can't do any of that shit. Totally lost my train of thought, bro.
No worries. We got to hop on to the song In My Head with Sarah Clearly and talk about that. The idea that if today was your last breath, what would you do? If you knew it was all done, would you be proud of where you got to, or would you regret it as past tense? And I think these are questions that we don't ask ourselves outside of music very often. We don't think about whether or not we're living up to our true potential, whether or not we're making the difference we would have wanted to, whether or not we're the spouse, partner, friend that we could have been. Looking back on it, it's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and that we're busy and we're booked up. It's hard to look at yourself in the mirror and ask those questions.
Yeah, it really is, man. And I think that, I don't think enough people ask themselves that question, right? And like, if I had to ask myself right now, like, am I proud of where I've gotten? Am I proud of what I've accomplished? I would say absolutely not. Like, I'm not even close to what I think I would feel proud of. Like, have I done things that I'm proud of? Yes, but I feel like the negative outweighs the positive in my eyes. And that really sucks to say, right? But I've done a lot of introspection, a lot of, I don't know, man, just a lot of thoughts about my life and my past and everything that I've done. And I don't know, man. I'm not proud of where I am. I'm not proud of who I am, but I'm working every day so that I can be one day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's not done, right? Like, it's a journey that you're allowed to go on and say, this is where I'd like to end up. This is where the pinnacle will be for me personally, regardless of what the numbers do and regardless of all of those other things. This is the place I want to be able to sit back and be grateful and feel like I've contributed and done what I want to do.
Yeah, no, man. See, I hope we have a follow-up podcast like 5 years from now. You know what I mean? Where it looks like Ellen, like we're on a stage, I walk out, everyone's yelling, and you're like, Nate, it's been so long, man. Nice to see you. You know what I mean? Like, you're a billionaire or whatever the fuck. like, I don't know, man. I really want to be proud of myself, right? I think everyone does. But the second that I say I am proud of myself, I feel like my work's done in a weird way, and like, it's nowhere close to done. Like, I am not even halfway towards, my goal of who I want to be as a person, right? Yeah, I just think it's really important to, to always be working, not only on yourself, but, on your artistry, on your relationships, on your place in this world, right?
And selfishly, I think we're incredibly lucky because we're on this journey with you as listeners. So listening to your music, we get to hear where you're at this time, what you're thinking, where you're reflecting on. And I think that it's incredibly enlightening to see and listen to music where we get to see where your mental state is at and how you're feeling about things. And I also need to, because it's one of my all-time favorite songs, regardless of rap or hip-hop, one of my all-time favorite songs, Safe, because I think it hits on a point that another one we don't talk about very often, but we want to feel secure, understood, valued. Such simple ideas. I mean, these ideas are becoming commonplace that we say, but how often do we actually feel like we can be flawed, that we can be stupid, that we can make mistakes and still have people around us that will support us, that will empathize with us, that will try and pick us back up and believe in us and in the ways that we want to be understood, because we all have different love languages and ways we want to be understood. Some people don't want a big hug when they're going through something. Sometimes they just want to talk. Like, being safe means different things. And I think it's just one of your most profound pieces of artwork.
Man, thank you. I love that song, man. Like, I think I've said that probably 4 or 5 times on this interview so far, but it's just true, man. Like, that is one of my favorite songs I've ever created, because I was in a really, I feel like a broken record, man. Every one of these songs, I'm like, I was in a horrible place, man. Like, but it was fucking true. You know, I think Picasso said, like, you know, the best art comes from pain and suffering, something like that. And I think that's so true, man, because when I wrote that song, I was beginning to be sober for the first time, you know, since I discovered drugs. Like, you know, I was trying to rebuild myself from scratch, essentially. And I remember when I went to therapy, just to overcome a lot of shit from my childhood, that, like, he always told me I needed to feel safe, right? You need to identify all 5 senses. You said, like, wiggle your toes, you know, like, listen to what's around you, smell, feel where you're at. And I am always in my head, like, always. And I'm always overanalyzing things. I'm like thinking about what to say, what not to say. Is this going to offend this person? You know, when I made that song, it was just such a weight lifted off of my chest, because I just wanted to feel safe. You know what I mean? Like, and to this day, it's something that I'm working on religiously. And I just think it's so important for people that have dealt with trauma or anything difficult in their life, that they refine their sense of safety. Because, like, I lost that when I was a kid, and I haven't got it back since. And that's subconsciously dictated all of my life choices and created who I am today. I hope that makes sense.
It does. Actually, Carl Jung talks about this idea that we spend all of our childhood wanting to be adults, and then we spend all of our adulthood wishing that we could be kids again. And the ultimate point you see that the most is in elderly people, because they can sit in a park all day and watch the kids play and have that sense of peace, because it does become about the bills. It becomes about the next thing you're doing, about being busy with this project or that, or being at work or doing these things, and you're not in the moment just having fun. Like, how free did you feel when you were playing tag or doing something silly and just goofing off? Like, you just don't have that same level of freedom where it isn't about a vice or doing something in order to feel productive. And I think that that's what so many people struggle with. And you also have this line in there that, like, you feel like there's people saying they're going to give you 100% and they don't. And I really resonate with that line, because so many people say, like, how many people have reached out to me saying they're going to start a podcast, and then I'm still waiting for them to get started. So many people will say they'll help you out and they'll hook you up and they'll have your back, and then they don't follow through. And I think I'm going to bother Tim by bringing him up, but he's a person who's believed in this from the get-go and watched me progress and improve and has supported that. But he's also the person I never have to ask for anything from him, because he's willing to go that extra mile. And I've seen that same thing in you, where you've worked hard to make this interview great. You've put in the effort, and you weren't expecting that to be brought up, but I couldn't appreciate that more. And there are people out there willing to truly give 100%, but they're rare. They're not every day. You come across them and they're true gems, because they're willing to do what it takes. They're willing to give you their 100%, as long as you're willing to put in the other 100%. And you can make something great when you meet people like yourself and like Tim.
Man, see, I love that you said that, bro, because, like, when I first talked to you, man, like months ago, I think like October or something.
Yeah.
It was a while ago, man. And, like, when you first asked me to go on the podcast, I was like, I don't know, man. I think I even called you. I think I even called you. I wanted to talk to you first, but when I was talking to you and I saw what kind of person you were, I was like, yo, I can tell this person is someone that is going to give it 100%, right? Like, I could tell that you loved what you did and you were going to bring that same energy if we did a podcast or an interview. And I watched the interview with Vin Jay. I watched the interview with Justin Clancy, and, like, both of those were just fucking awesome, man. I don't know, bro. I mean, Dad, you have beautiful eyes. You give awesome virtual fist bumps and everything. But I mean, it's just cool, man. So, yeah, I know we're talking about my song and shit, but I just wanted to put that out there, you know?
I appreciate you so much. And it means so much because you articulated it. And I may think these things and think like, wow, this person's great. But when you articulate that there are people who just, they kind of, oh, I'll help you out. And then they don't show up or it's late or it's not as good. I've gone through some things recently where it's really made me appreciate those people who come through, who give it their all when there's no expectations. Like there's no requirement that you do this, yet you're willing to put in your best effort. And that means the world to me. And again, in your latest song, which we're going to get to, that's coming out soon, you also talk about this idea, which I think is super valuable. You've dropped a few songs, though, that we have to get to that are a little bit more heavy. Shooting Stars is one of them. And I think it is, again, another masterclass where that singing comes out, where the doubters didn't see this coming because you tie in such a beautiful voice. I know that you maybe not see your voice the same way I see it, but I love, as I talked to with Justin Clancy, this honest, raw voice that you brought to that song. How did Shooting Stars come about?
Man, so actually, I was I was on a shroom trip, man, and I was just chilling in my fucking apartment, extremely high, man. Like I was like, I don't know, man. You have any experience with psychedelics at all?
No, unfortunately not.
Oh man, that's not a bad thing. Like there's this fine line between like 2.5 to like 3.5 grams of these rooms, right? And like, there's a fine line between you're chilling and you're having a good time, and you're kind of like, I don't know how to put it. You're like on the surface of the water, and you can like view in for a second and see what's going on, but then you can come back out when you want. Then there's a 3.5 plus where like you're fully submerged and you can't get up, for hours. You know what I mean? And when I was on that trip specifically, I was in a weird ass middle room, bro. Like I was like, I just need to distract myself because I was not in a good headspace at that time. And when I wrote Shooting Stars, I was going through YouTube beats, and I found this one in particular that was a chill guitar type beat. And like, I just played my speaker high as fuck in my fucking apartment, and I was just like, I pray on a shooting star. And I was like, bro, this is it. No, I just fucking wrote like the entire track that night, the majority of the track, I should say. And like, I don't know, bro, the immense relief that I felt when I articulated what I was feeling in that moment was extremely powerful. Like I just started crying. I was just like, I don't know, man. It felt surreal. That is the only track I ever made on shrooms, but like, I don't know, dude. I've got to do that again because the energy of that track was just so like, it was so raw and powerful, and like, I don't know, dude. I feel like I'm like stroking my own ego right now, but
no, you should be very proud of it. I don't know if you listen to Jordan Peterson at all, but he goes through this concept of what does it mean to wish upon a shooting star. He talks about Pinocchio because that's one reference that I think most people have heard of, where you're asking something greater than yourself. You're looking out up above yourself, recognizing that you're small and asking for something. And you have to do that honestly. You have to do it with the intent of wanting to improve. If it's done selfishly, it doesn't work. But that's that idea of praying, because often people think you need to say a certain amount of Hail Marys, or you need to do it a certain way, or you got to be on your knees, or you got to... Praying is meditating, basically, where you're reflecting on, where do I want to be if I could have my life the way I want it, and I have to do work in order to get it there, but what do I have to do? And that's that thing that I think sometimes we forget to give ourselves is, I do want to go in this direction, the shooting star direction, but how do I get there? What do I have to do myself to get there? And that's what I thought was so beautiful, was you were willing to take that journey, and it does involve you. It's not like, I just want $1 million cash. And that's what people think of when they think of praying at a low level. But often it's, what do I have to do to make my life the way I want it to be? And that's the journey that you're so clearly on.
Right, absolutely, man. And you know, I think it goes back to the saying, it's like the quality of your life is the quality of the questions you ask, right? And it's
That's
not
good.
it's not always about like, you know, like you said, like I want $1 million. It's not like, yo, dear God, or whatever the fuck you believe in, like, I want $1 million, please. You know what I mean? That's it. Those people are gonna stay broke forever, right? Because they're asking something beyond themselves to provide themselves with something they don't deserve. But the real question you should ask is, what do I need to do? What kind of person do I need to become to make $1 million? Right. And those are the people that always succeed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I do listen to Jordan Peterson, by the way, bro. That's like, I don't know, man. I go on those like late nights, 3 a.m. YouTube listeners, you know, and that's one of the guys I usually go to. I like read a couple of his books, like the 12 Rules for Life and the 12 Rules for Life. Super insightful.
Yeah, it's crazy how much of a difference he can make in people's lives, like real difference, and what he's portrayed as. Because he's actually coming and doing a tour here in Vancouver and Abbotsford shortly here, and like the press about him is completely different than what he actually does for people. And like, I wouldn't have this podcast today if I didn't listen to Jordan Peterson, and he was like, "You could be more than you are today, so go on that path and figure that out." Like that meant the world to me, because it feels like, Am I there? Did I arrive? And it's like, you can make so much more of a difference. You have this style, though, that I love. You tie songs together intricately, and only the real ones know. And your song, I'm Not Okay, came up in multiple other songs indirectly, but we all knew what was going on. Can you talk about the song, I'm Not Okay?
Yeah, man. So like, I love tying songs into other ones, because in my head, it's like I'm building a story, right? And not a fabricated story, but like I'm drawing upon parts of my life over the last 26 years and putting them into this, you know, basically journal of my life story. And I'm Not Okay was a really powerful one to release for me, because it was like, I don't know, man. I don't even want to talk about it on the podcast, because I just get emotional like when I talk about it, man.
I get it.
And when I made that song, I was at work, actually. I used to sell gym memberships at a place called 24 Hour Fitness. And that one night when, it was crazy, man. I was supposed to go home early because I had a studio session. And I couldn't go home early. I actually had to stay and like work. And I was all pissed off about it because, you know, I had a studio session, whatever. And I was selling this gym membership to this one guy. I'll never forget this. And he comes in and we just connect like immediately. It was fucking crazy. He played basketball for college in Portland. You know, I was walking him by the basketball court and we sat down at my desk at the time. And he just looks at me like totally surreal. He looks at me dead in the eye and he's like, I have something I need to sell you. And I was like, okay, like, bro, if you like me, man, just tell me, you know, like, you know what I mean? And, you know, he just told me that, like, he was sexually abused as a child. And he told me that he just wrote this poem today and he had to share it with somebody. And for some reason, he wanted to share it with me. And it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard in my life, man. And when I heard it, it was like, it was life-changing, man. I'm just getting emotional even talking about it, man. You know, I was just hugging this dude in the middle of the gym floor, man. And sorry, dog. We're just talking about what happened to us as kids for like an hour, man. And my boss is looking over at us like, what the fuck is Nate doing? You know, we're like crying, like hugging, like everyone's looking at us. And it was the first time in my life that I talked openly about what I'd been through. And I sold him the gym membership. I got his phone number. I went back home, and that's when I made I'm Not Okay. Like the exact same night that all of that went down. And it was the fastest song I've ever made. Like I made that song in like fucking 30 minutes. I went to the studio the next day. I recorded it. And that was the first song for the album that I made. And I was like, fuck, like how do I build a project around this song? And then that's when Basement came into play. Never talked to that dude again, by the way. I have no idea what happened to him. Maybe he was like some weird guardian angel that came in to buy a gym membership for some shit. He's got to like get his gains on or something. But it was such a powerful moment, man. And it is something that I will never forget, like, in my entire life.
You brought up Basement, and all of these songs tie together so beautifully, and that's such a heavy... The next few songs we're going to talk about are incredibly heavy, and Basement ties in really nicely. Can you talk about how that song came about? Because it was another feature with Gawne.
Man, so Basement was actually the second to last track that I made, like, when that album came out. And I'll be honest, man, like, that song to me didn't have a lot of emotion attached to it. Just being totally transparent. To me, I was trying to recreate the emotion of I'm Not Okay, because I had to have an intro to the album to kind of foreshadow the end of the album, right? And so when I made that track, I was like trying to recreate this moment that I had when I made I'm Not Okay, and I couldn't do it. Like, I couldn't do it. The lyrics didn't hit the way I wanted them to. The vocal performance didn't hit the way I wanted it to. So that's why I got Gawne on it, because I knew Gawne would fucking kill it, as he always does. And then I hit up my homie Atlus, and I knew he was going to kill it because the dude has a voice of a fucking angel, man. Do you know Atlus's music at all? Like,
of course, big fan. I'm listening to Plank on repeat right now.
Man, see, we're talking about Binks earlier, and he's just one of those artists, man, that has the full package. Like, he's just fucking amazing. I got so off topic, but yeah, I guess what I was saying is I was trying to recreate the emotion of I'm Not Okay, and I had to call in some backup to help make the track what I wanted it to be.
It turned out really well. You also have recently dropped Fragments, and I think it is a masterpiece end to end, because I think it is also a journey within itself. That being said, Demons is probably one of the heaviest songs, if you know, you know, and hearing that, it gives me goosebumps. But I have such respect and admiration for you for being able to put that in the beginning, and I just can't think of anything like it, man. Like, you're on a different level, and it gave me chills listening to that. How did that come about?
So I was in the studio when I made that one. And it was such a weird moment, man. Because I had this instrumental in my files on my phone for like probably 6 or 7 months or something. And I completely forgot about it. And when I was in the studio, I played it, and I just started singing. I was like, I woke up at 3 a.m, I saw a demon. And we just made this track like in like 5 or 10 minutes. So it was so simple. In the very end, it was like we had to have something there, and I didn't really know what to put. And this is like right after I made I'm Not Okay, like literally like maybe a month after that. And I was listening to that in the studio prior to me making Demon, and I was like, yo, I need to touch on this more, because I just made one song about what happened and I totally stopped because it's just really difficult to bring up.
Yeah.
And when I made that, it was like, you know, when you're a kid and you go through something traumatic, you usually imagine that it was a monster, right? Or it was a demon, because how could another human being do something like that, right? But then, like, when you're a child, you can't really explain it to yourself, right? Like, it's just like, I don't know, you see a monster, you see a demon, right? So for me, that was what that song was about. It was like, you know, it was a demon that did all of that. Um, yeah, I'm like, see, I'm trying not to get emotional like I did say like 5 minutes ago. um, yeah, I think I'm just gonna leave it at that if that's cool with you.
Of course, man. As I said, I think that these songs are incredibly insightful, and I've often been saying that when we look at horror movies, often we look at them with the wrong lens, because there's a reason that the demon follows you. When, like, you'd think of ghost demon, the demon follows you no matter what house you're in, because it's attached to you. And for so many people, the demons look different, whether it's alcohol, drug abuse. The demons may look different, but it's a zoomed out version of something heavy chasing you. And the way you put it together, I just don't think anybody's ever hit it on the nose the way that you hit it on the nose. And just the most respect, the most admiration for the work you do, because I think that that's lyrical, artistic genius at work. And I just don't think it'll ever get the praise I know it deserves, listening to it and understanding it and seeing it for what it is. So I appreciate you for that. Then you drop another killer song with Vin Jay, Coward. And I think a lot of the time people do feel like they're cowardly, and we all like to watch the Avengers movie and feel like we're going to be the hero that follows through, that does what we need to do, that makes the difference. But the strongest people are often the people who realize that they actually weren't that person, that they weren't the person they wanted to be in the moment they wanted to be it. And you see that with Eminem in his early songs. He's talking about how, like, he couldn't stand up for himself. He couldn't fight the bully, but he could out-lyric them. He could out-communicate them, which is different than being able to win the fight. And I think that you hit on that song with Vin Jay in that song. What was the mindset putting that song together?
Yeah, I mean, man, Coward is another one of those ones that, like, I just loved creating. Like, I was on YouTube, man, like looking for, like, I literally was like a Slim Shady type beat, like just like that. And that was one of the results that popped up from this guy named Abyss. And as soon as I heard it, it reminded me of Kill You by Eminem. Do you know that song?
No.
It was like, dun, 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 dun. It's like, you don't want to fuck with Shady. Great track, bro. You got to check it out.
Okay.
But when I heard it, it was like, when I was a kid, that song gave me so much power. And it was like, it made me feel like I was stronger than I was. You know, I was bigger than I was. And I was a small kid, right? I was really timid. I was like, bro, I was like 4'11", chubby as fuck with a bowl cut, man. Like, I had like this weird tick thing going on where, like, I used to be like, you know, I used to play just like that. I was the target of every school bully, bro. It was a problem. And that song, Kill You by Eminem, really inspired me to stand up for myself, you know, and just learn how to stand up for myself is the only way I could put it. So when I made Coward, it was kind of the embodiment of that track in my own way, if that makes sense.
It was beautiful, and you talk exactly about that, this moment where you were like, I was small and too timid, but I'll never let it happen again. And that's the differentiator that some people never go through, that doesn't shape them. I was bullied as a kid, and I saw my bully like 5 years later, and I was right nose to nose to him, being like, you will never make me feel. I was afraid to leave my house. I was ashamed, and it felt like nobody could protect me. The one instance was my mom and my mom's friend were right there, and he was bullying me in front of them, and they couldn't do a thing about it because it was verbal. They weren't going to go beat on this kid that was my age, and so there was nothing they could do to stop it. And in that moment, it was like, wow, like I am there. My mom's right there, and there's going to be no consequences. And other places I would go, he would show up and threaten me and make me feel this small. And in that moment, I was able to reclaim that and say, there will be no moment in my life where I'll ever be the person that steps aside, the person that avoids it. And later in my life, a Subway sandwich shop was being robbed, and I chased the guy down the road and followed him, tried to get his license plate. And the police officer afterwards was like, you don't need to do that. Like, they would have only taken. And I was like, no, for my own sanity, I will never be the person that steps aside, that lets somebody get away with something. I will do that until the very end, because that's your integrity. You have to live with yourself. You have to go to bed. It's not about the money. It's about letting crimes happen in your community and trying to protect the world around you. And I had to go testify and look the guy who robbed that sandwich shop in the eye as I told them exactly what I saw him do and why I chased him and all of the backstory. And so those moments, again, I don't think they get the light when you realize who you were and who you want to be and make that commitment to yourself.
That's fucking cool. Man, like, that's fucking cool, bro. Like, I was sitting here trying to envision you chasing this guy for robbing a sandwich shop. And I was like, this is one of the coolest people I've ever met. Like, that's like, I don't want to interview you, but like, bro, you got to tell me this story, man. Because you just saw this going down. You're like, fuck no, man, not in my house.
Yeah. Okay. So the backstory is my close friend, Jake. He's the first person I interviewed for this podcast. We used to hang out there every single day. Instead of doing alcohol, drugs, hanging out with those type of people, we'd sit in that sandwich shop daily, drink pop, and read the newspaper. We were the most boring 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds there ever were. And we would just sit there. And so it was by myself one day sitting there, and he was pretending that he had a weapon on him and kind of doing like this with it, suggesting that he had a gun on him. And once he left, I immediately just chased after him, and he turned around. And in that moment, I was petrified that he actually might have a gun on him, because it was like, there was nothing between us. It was like looking straight at him, and he didn't. So I was fine. And then I continued chasing their vehicle down the road, got on the phone with 911. And yeah, it's crazy that it's all documented. In Canada, the case is called RV Heatley, and that was the person who robbed that store.
Bro, man, I feel like I don't know, dude, you got to put that on your job resume. You got to put that like in front of your podcast homepage. Like, that's just fucking cool, man. How have we never talked about this before?
I don't think I've ever talked about it on the podcast before, ever. So,
dude, I want to call my mom. I'm like, oh, how was your day? Oh, it was good. How was yours? Mom, I met this fucking hero today. like, this is cool, man. That's dope.
Thanks, man. Well, speaking of doing something that's really interesting, your song Push ended up on American Dad. And I could tell that meant something to you. Beyond anything else, it meant something to you. How did that come about? How did that song come about? And what did it mean to get on American Dad?
Dude, that was single-handedly the coolest moment in my music career. Like,
was it planned? Was it like you talked to them beforehand?
Kind of not. It's totally random, man. So I love the show American Dad. Like, as a kid growing up, like Dad, South Park, Family Guy, favorite shows of all time, and Naruto. But it's a whole different talk. Anyways, man, so I was in the studio working on some tracks, and Sky was talking to Brian Shafton. He owns a record label out in Burbank. He contacted me, and he was like, man, so I have this sync opportunity for you, and you're gonna love it. So he called me. He told me American Dad needs a song for their show for the next season, and I was like, what do I got to do? Just tell me what I got to do. And they sent me this really general outline of what kind of a song to make, and we made the song, no shit, in like 20 minutes. Like, I was in the studio with my girlfriend, with the studio engineer, and we pulled up this beat that Dylan sent me. This guy named Only One. And we literally had 20 minutes like to make the track. Like, they gave us 30 minutes total. I had 20 minutes to write, 10 minutes to record, mix, master, whatever. We set it to the show, and like an hour later, we got the confirmation. They were like, yo, like, this is fucking amazing. We're going to use the song, right? And it was fucking mind-blowing, man. Like, such a cool experience. But what sucked is we got the confirmation for the show, and like Disney reached out, gave us the contracts and everything. We signed everything, got it sent off and shit. But like, we didn't get the confirmation that it was actually going to be in the show. We just got the confirmation they liked it and were planning on using it. So I didn't know it was going to be in the show. And so literally the day of, like the day that the episode dropped, Brian called me. I was like, yeah, they're going to use it in the episode. And like, I don't know, bro. I don't know. It was single-handedly the coolest moment in my music career, though.
Yeah, you can feel it because the way you were talking about it and the way that they kind of premiered it was really cool. But that must have been challenging to like let it go off and not know when, if, how, and have all of those, and then to have it drop and not to be able to maybe like plan it out and have a plan around it. It's just right in front of you a few hours later, it sounds like.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I was on tour with an artist named Gremlin and Chaotic at the time, and like I was in the green room in Seattle chilling, and my mom actually sent me a video clip, and she was like, "Oh my god, look!" And I was like in the green room practicing my set, doing whatever, and I saw it, and like I just started crying, man. I was like, "Yo, like we met in American Dad," and then Gremlin, which was the headliner for the tour, he comes up and he started filming me crying. He was like, "I'm telling him how you feel," and I was like, "Oh yeah, good. It meant the world to me." Whatever the fuck I said, and it was such a cool experience, and to be able to have that happen and to actually see the years of hard work that you put into your craft like pay off just a little bit. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. One of those moments where you can kind of cherish it and remember it and hold on to it.
Yeah, man. It's like, you know, the 10,000 plus hours that you put into this, like there's a really small sliver of something palpable. You know what I mean? Like, like this happened. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. We have to go back to your Fragments album, One More Drink. You have this really beautiful line about we go through these problems, we face them, we have to overcome them, then we sing about them, wash, rinse, and repeat. It's autopilot. And it's going back to one of those previous songs, it's this journey of having to be vulnerable all the time and figure out that, like, I don't even know how you would do that. Sit there and think about the problems you have and the challenges you're facing, and then go, okay, I'm going to talk about that. And I think it's an incredibly scary idea, because we always talk about, okay, if you're going to give me feedback, I want some good and I want some bad. But as an artist, you're like, okay, I'm going to take these terrible things that I've just gone through and how am I going to talk about them? So if you can listen to it, it's like your whole world has to revolve around the bad things going on. So you get almost like a skewed view of yourself. And working with a lot of police officers, I know that that's one of their biggest challenges is they only see the worst 80% of the world. They rarely see the regular everyday grabbing a cup of coffee and nothing happens. They go into the darkest things. And I compare that to you, because you're going to the darkest parts of your mind, of the things you've been through, and then having to talk about them and then do it again and again and again to no end. And I think that was a beautiful quote about what you go through.
Man, it's a really difficult, you know, just a difficult profession. You know what I mean? Like, because I think it gives myself a skewed perception of who I am, right? Because it's like, if you have one focal point and you just fucking view that focal point, you know, that's all you see. You know, right now I see your beautiful face, but like, if I'm making a song, it's like, I see that negative part of myself and over again until it's so fucking ingrained in my brain that like I kind of lose sight of the positives in my life of who I am, you know. So I'm focusing on that, the worst 80% of myself instead of the best 80%, right? It's a really high price to pay for being an artist, but I think it's so important that we have people in our society that are willing to do that, you know?
I couldn't agree more. And again, it just goes to how blessed we are that people are willing to take those steps and share their vulnerabilities so that we can feel understood in some way, that we can feel connected. And in a few days, I get to interview a music expert who's going to talk about and break down how we process music, how we connect with it, what is the process, because it can make you run when you feel like you don't have any energy left. It can make you feel like you can get up when life's knocked you down. It can help in so many different ways. It can help with dementia and so many just interesting issues. And that's why it's always such a pleasure to sit down with people like yourself who are doing the creating, who are doing the grunt work, so that we as everyday people can feel understood. But we have to switch to a really positive one. I think one of the most beautiful songs, Love with Borderline, because my partner loves it. I love it. I think it is what true love looks like. Can you talk about how Love with Borderline came about?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I made Love with Borderline, it was I mean, it's about borderline personality disorder, right? And like, are you familiar with borderline? Or
Yes, but if you could describe it for people who might not know.
I am not smart enough to
Okay.
articulate that, man. Like that's a whole fucking novel worth of knowledge. But I am borderline, and it's affected my life immensely. I constantly have this instability of self. I have a very high fear of being abandoned. I really bad mood swings, right? And because of that, I've always used substances to stabilize my emotions or to normalize who I am. Like I'll leave a conversation that I had with a stranger for 5 minutes and ruminate about it for the next month on how awful of a person I was. You know what I mean? And when I made that song, I was like thinking back to all the relationships that I've had over the years. And I was really just kind of thinking about how fucked up I was and how many wrong things I've done, and just totally blaming myself, right? Putting that heavy burden on myself. And making that song was kind of, how do I put this? I guess it was kind of my realization of myself that like, I'm not a horrible person. You know, I just have a tendency to think I'm a horrible person when I'm, you know, doing something that's probably not okay. And that song was kind of made for anyone else with borderline, or, you know, otherwise people that can relate to it in general, that like, they're not horrible people for doing that, or for saying something rude, or for gaslighting, like whatever you want to say. They're just people, you know, and that's kind of love with borderline, you know.
That's what I really appreciated, is working in the courts. One of the most common charges I deal with every day is domestic violence. And it's a very, very, very complicated topic because everybody's experience is different. But it takes two to tango is the traditional thing that I see the most of. Most of my clients, it's two people involved. And it's exactly how you sort of describe in the song, which is go away, no wait, come back. And people wanting you to come back is them starting a new argument and causing different issues. And that's almost connection for some people in those dark moments, is if you can start another disagreement rather than them leaving, at least you're still together. And all of that is unconscious. All of that is not being planned out. But it can feel so hard to get back on the same page in so many of those moments that I think a lot of people feel like love is no issues, no disagreements, no arguments. And there's a deep, as we talk about, there's a deep shame in those disagreements of who you are, of what you just said. And the quality of person you are in those moments can feel so heavy when you're in them, and that you're attacked. And for people, it's often the person that you're the closest with that can wound you the worst. They can make you feel like you're nothing, like you never mattered. And comments like, you are no good, you'll never be any good, are just a way to destroy somebody's past and present. And it's complicated. People are complicated, and the relationships we have are, I would say, beautifully complicated, because there's true connection in some of the most messy of times. And people are able to pick you up when you're down, and you're able to pick others up when they're down. But it's mixed in with two flawed human beings trying to build something better than themselves together. And I think that that's the message I took away from that song.
Yeah, no, you articulated it better than I did, and I made the song, man. It was really just talking about what love really is, you know. And I took it from the perspective of someone with borderline, but really I think it's applicable to anybody that is in a relationship, because love is, you know, it's not only the good times, it's like the good and the bad. And I think it was actually Jordan Peterson that I learned this from, since we were talking about him earlier. Yeah. It's, in order to have a successful relationship, there's like a ratio of good to bad experiences you need to have. And I think the ratio was specifically like 5 to 1, like 5 positive interactions to 1 negative interaction in order to have a happy relationship. Because any more, and it's going to fail because it's too positive, it's too fake. Any less, you know, it's going to fail because it's fucking, you're horrible to be around.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think that it's just loving yourself and your partner through the difficult times is what it's about.
Exactly. And you worded that perfectly as well with the song where you talk about, I don't want this fake shit. I want to be loved when I'm depressed and I'm anxious. I want to be understood. And that goes back to the song Safe, which is this underlying theme of like, we just want to be understood. We just want to be able to come home to somebody who wants to see us. We just want them to want to go the extra mile, not to ask, because it can get into this like, oh, if you agree to do this for me, then I agree to do that for you. And then you have this it's not that. It's, are they willing to go the extra mile when you're down and out and you won't ask for anything, when you aren't willing to say anything, when you, I'm fine, I have nothing to say, I'll be okay. Are they willing to come through in those moments and not just leave you to your own devices? That's the real love that I think we're talking about. But you have a new song. It's coming soon. You have to tell us about it.
Man, I love this one we're going to talk about. Cool, bro. We talked about a lot of really sad songs over this last hour or so we've been talking. Like, I think I cried like twice or some shit. Like, I'm fucking hyped for this one, man. Like, this is I'm so fucking excited, man. So No One Can Stop Me. That's the record you're referring to, right?
I am referring to it.
My man, yo, so No One Can Stop Me is dropping 4/25. And like that's with another artist named Durand. Like I think earlier I mentioned there's a bunch of artists that I like collabing with because I look up to them. And Durand's one of those people. Like, every time that I hear that guy make a song, every time I hear him rap, I'm just like, yo, like, how do I get to that level? You know, how do I formulate a verse the same way that he formulates his verses? And when I reached out to him and he said he was going to do the record, I was fucking stoked, man. And on top of that, he got me his verse back like the next day. Like, that dude writes faster than anyone. Like, his verse is 2 minutes long, bro. Like, it's not a short verse. And he wrote that like in one day, on top of having a family, on top of having kids. Like, bro, I take a week to 2 weeks to write a verse. Like, I'm sitting in my car for hours, like ruminating on the perfect way to articulate it. And this dude comes out of nowhere and just, I don't know, dude. It's fucking cool. Like, it's inspirational. And No One Can Stop Me is like, that's what the whole track's about, man. It's about, you know, creating a version of yourself that nothing can stop, right? Like, you're impenetrable. You know, it's meant to create the feeling that you can overcome anything. And I'm just really fucking excited to release it to everyone.
But you're living it. Like, that's the crazy thing. It's not just that you're rapping about this concept. You're living out this idea. And that's how your verse starts.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what it's about, man. And he's like, you know, for years I've tried creating this version of myself, and I've tried building, and I'm like, you know, okay, I stopped drugs. Now I'm going to the gym. Okay, I'm going to the gym. Like, now I'm reading. Now I'm reading. Now I'm X, Y, and Z trying to build the version of myself that I want. And I'm nowhere close to where I want to be. But creating that song, like No One Can Stop Me, is like my mindset through all of it, right? Because no matter how many times I fall, no matter how many steps backward I take, I'm always going to do my best to come out of it as a stronger person, right? And that's the whole purpose of the song.
You shared it with me privately. Are we allowed to talk about a few verses, a few lines from it?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Okay, so we've got to start with this, you looking in the mirror and saying, why are you holding me back? I love that. I love the idea of that because I think it's true. I think so many people just look in the mirror and go, you're not enough. You're not who you should be. You're ugly. You're not worth it. What are you going to go do with your life? I think for the most part, there's nothing in our system that's holding anybody back from doing what they want to do in life. I think for the most part, it's you in the mirror looking at yourself saying you can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally like when I was writing that verse, bro, like that was literally what I was doing the morning before. It was like, why are you holding me back? Like, you and I, you know, we've been together for 26 years now, right? And we've been through so much together. And like, I'm nowhere near where I want to be, and it's your fucking fault, right? Like, this self-accountability. And I think the next line is like, something about being fragile. Like, I didn't know it was glass, like my self-image, my self-worth. And I love that line because it's like, I don't know, man, like your ego, yourself, your self-worth, like it's so fragile. And then people don't understand that. Then they build it up to this like impenetrable thing, but really, man, it's a pane of glass. Like if you smash it on the side of the road, it's done. It's in a million pieces, and then you have to rebuild it from scratch, right?
The other line that I think is so important, because you can say, no one can stop me, and people can go, oh, well, you know, I've got this going on and I've got that going on, and, you know, there's this bill coming up and I don't know. And you can feel like, oh, there is things stopping me. But you have this perfect line in there where, like, if you're going to go climb that mountain, there are going to be storms. There's going to be stuff in your way. But that's the mindset you have to have, is that nothing's going to stop you, despite the bad days, despite the people who want to stand in your way, despite the doubters, despite the costs, despite the bills. You're going to go make it happen. No one is stopping you.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it, man. Is like there are going to be storms and you are going to suffer, but like that's arguably the best part of the journey, because if you're not suffering, you're not going to be able to fully enjoy the benefits that you reap later down the road. And you know, I don't know a single high quality person that has not been through difficult times in their life, like not a single one.
I couldn't agree more. The most perhaps important line is, everyone who has two sides of them, you decide who you want to be. And I think that calls people to action, to choose who they want to be. That it's in your hands. It's not dice being rolled. It's not cards you're dealt. It's who you want to be.
Absolutely. And I hate when people say like they're, what do they say, man? Like they're a product of circumstance. Like, I think that's true to a degree, but like, I also think that no matter what cards you're dealt, like you can grow from that and capitalize on whatever situation you have. And you know, you can grow from it. It's like everybody has two sides to them. You decide who you want to feed. It's like there's two wolves, right? And one wolf is the bad side of you, the one that wants to run away from everything, the one that wants to do drugs, the one that wants to, you know, basically fuck up. And the other side is usually smaller, arguably, is us saying that we shouldn't do that. You know, maybe we should try and grow from this. Maybe we should go to the gym, eat healthy, whatever. And it's like whichever one that you constantly pay attention to and give feedback to, like that's the one that's going to grow. And I just think, I don't know, man. I don't want to be who I was 5 years ago, and I never want to go back to that place. So I need to keep feeding this annoying fuck that's going to keep telling me to do stuff I don't want to do. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No One Can Stop Me, dropping April 25th. I'm so excited. It is such a banger. I'm so grateful that you were willing to do this today. It's been such a pleasure to build a friendship with you, to get to know you, and to see how real and honest you are. I don't think that there's a more real person when it comes to being willing to experience the stuff you've gone through and be willing to talk about it. I think you're an incredibly brave, courageous individual, and it's just been such a pleasure to spend this time with you today.
Man, likewise, bro. It was amazing talking to you, man. I'm still looking forward to playing tennis with you whenever I make it up to Canada or you come down to Portland or whatever. Man, thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
It has been a true pleasure. I think we've covered so many different issues. I think you're an incredibly insightful individual, and I think we're really lucky that you're willing to share your voice the way you do. And again, we could never ask you to do it. But I've been personally inspired by you. I've run longer, I've gone farther, I've pushed harder because of the inspiration in your music. It's gotten me through the dark times, through the good times. And I'm so grateful to be able to flick on your music and be able to talk to you. It's such a surreal experience.
Wish I could hug you right now. You feel like a virtual hugger.
There you go. Let's go.
Camera. Yo, I'm so awkward, man. I'm like, this is just how I am in real life too. Like someone will say something, I'll say something. They'll look at each other, and then I'll kind of like go like this, and then they'll go like this.
Do you have any other things that you're dropping soon that you want to let people know about?
Not yet, bro, but we got some crazy track.
Something cooking, it sounds like. Can you tell people how they can follow you online?
Absolutely. So my name is Enkay47. You can basically look that up anywhere. There is not another motherfucker alive on day 47. So just Google that and you're going to find me. And when you see the this lovable face. That's who I am.
Couldn't agree more. Go check him out. I'm such a big fan. It's so crazy to be able to sit down with you. I'm just so grateful. Thank you again for doing this.
Hey, thanks again for having me, bro. Hey, like another fist bump before we go.
Fist bump.
Oh man.
So we didn't really figure out where these handles come from, but we'll keep searching.
True. I like the 4 + 7 = 11. That was pretty intricate.
That was more complicated than I think my brain was ready for. I was trying to figure out the math behind the scenes.
Really enjoyed that interview. Well done.
Asking the tough questions, those are always the hardest, like the most vulnerable. And like, again, I think the songs speak for themselves, so it's tough to bring them up, but what a brave person to be able to talk about the things that he went through and open that door of conversation for others, because it's certainly a topic everybody knows is real, but certainly not one that we talk about openly.
I had this image of your story in the Subway restaurant. And then he was talking about his favorite animated shows. So I have this picture of like a 2-minute animated short of the Subway scene in the style of American Dad or one of those. And Seth MacFarlane doing your voice as you run after the culprit. So
I think it could look pretty good animated.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. I hope that this opens a lot of opportunities for deeper conversations about complex topics. As always, rate it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and subscribe to the newsletter. And go check out our new website, www.biggerthanmepodcast.ca. I don't know how to get the .com, haven't figured that out yet. One day.
Awesome. Yes, you have to have an aspiration of where you want to get to, so the .com can be that
beast, that unattainable.
Exactly.